Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's Mark from PowerSonic and Apprentice 1-to-1. Today we're going to have a look at getting set up in the solar and battery storage industries, everything that I've learned over the last few weeks and months on our journey through MCS registration, the hoops you need to jump through, the boxes you need to tick, and all the information you're going to need to know. I'm going to go from the start to the finish. We have made it over that finish line now and we are MCS registered installers. I hope this is going to be helpful to other electricians who are thinking of going on this journey themselves. I know my guys are very grateful to our journey. They're up on roofs right now enjoying themselves and loving life. I'm not sure that that's going to be the case in December, but we'll see how things go. So first up is the training aspect. That is your first port of call. There is some additional training you're going to have to go through if you haven't already had some solar and battery storage training. I used NAPIT, so we went to NAPIT in Mansfield and I undertook the solar voltaic course first up with BPEC and NAPIT. And you get this very handy book here. So this is the Renewables Domestic Solar Voltaic Systems Learning Manual, and it is packed full of information. Everything you need is in this book. You can see it's quite a thick and weighty guidance document. It's full of diagrams and information, teaches you how to do the calculations in terms of the size and scope of systems you might need, and even fixing them to the roof structures themselves. So it really is a good book, that one. I think there is LCL courses that you can do too. We're going to go off and have a look at some websites later on in this video. So we'll look at the NAPIT training website and we're going to have a look at some of the MCS information as well. You will also need some other books alongside your learning. So in this case, I've got the IET's guidance document for grid-connected solar voltaic systems. So you are going to need a copy of that. There is a battery version as well, but I think that's currently in draft to be released as an updated version. So if you're watching this video close to its time of release, it might be worthwhile holding on for now. If this is several months old, you might want to go and check out what the latest version of all these books are, because they do seem to change fairly often, and make sure you buy in the one that's applicable to the time frame that you're watching this. So outside of the training, you've also got to tick the boxes within MCS. And part of that will involve registering as an MCS installer with a self-certification body. So in my case, again, I chose NAPIT. There are other providers. We'll have a look at the website so you can see what all of those are. It's basically an application form that you need to fill in that details the training course that you've done, your insurances and other such things as that. We'll have a look at the form that NAPIT asks for their applicants to fill in later on in this video and speak about it at that time. There is also other things you're going to need to do in terms of consumer protection. So there's HIES and RECC, which are two consumer protection bodies, and you're going to have to join those as well if you want to be MCS registered installers. There is an additional cost to that too. We'll get to it when we look at the websites in specific and break some of this down. And one of the underpinning principles to the whole MCS system is your quality management system. So you're going to need something that can manage the offering that you're delivering to your clients at the end of the day. There are some documents that you can download from the MCS website itself. So if you want to do that in paper format or utilizing Excel spreadsheets and Word files, they do kind of help you towards that themselves, and we'll have a look at that later on in this video as well. Okay, so I'm going to zoom me down now and we'll have a look through all of the processes you're going to need to understand and go through in terms of registering for your MCS approval. And as I said at the beginning, it starts with your training. So in this case, I used NAPIT. There's a couple of offerings I'm aware of from BPEC and LCL. As I mentioned before, there's the BPEC course I did with this document that's really helpful. So the guidance book from them is fantastic. You can see there's a cost associated with these. You can do your photovoltaic and battery storage at the same time. I split mine apart just because a week out of work all at once was a big ask with everything else I've got going on. But if you want, you can do them together. They run them at locations around the UK. So you can see, for example, the BPEC energy storage course is run in Bristol, Halifax, Maidstone, Mansfield, Oldham and Potters Bar. And again, if we take LCS off and just look at BPEC, it should be the same, I think, for the photovoltaic as well. Indeed it is. So you're going to need to go off and do those. There's a cost. You're looking at £600 to £1,000 for the combination of the PV and battery storage-ish. So you need to check that out specific to your provider. I've got to say that the guys and girls at Mansfield from NAPIT training were absolutely brilliant, very knowledgeable lecturers. The refreshments were laid on, the breaks were set out quite nicely, there's plenty of parking, nice facility to go and learn and training. They've even got a roof space and some inverters for you to practice on as well. It's not just all sat in the classroom. Well worth checking out. They get a thumbs up from me for sure. Once you've got your courses sorted out, you need to then look at your MCS application in terms of getting set up with an MCS provider, certification provider. And again, I use NAPIT because I'm already a NAPIT member in the regular electrical space, so it made a lot of sense to stick with what you know. But regardless of that, the value was there from them. And it was a no-brainer for me to go off and use the guys and girls from NAPIT. And again, you've got the set rates on the website there that you need to make sure, depending on the number of technologies selecting, because they are involved in lots of different sectors at NAPIT. It isn't just electrical. And then you need to fill in your application form. It's pretty straightforward. All of your basic contact details and company details, your insurances that you've got in place, and a signature. And again, just ticking the boxes of what it is you're actually applying for. So in this case, photovoltaic systems and battery storage systems. So make sure you're ticking off those boxes in terms of your application form. Now, as part of your application form, it does tell you you're going to need to be a member of a consumer code of protection. There's a couple of options in terms of this. I think there's only the two, there may be more, but HIES and RECC are the two providers I'm aware of. It's just a bit of assurance for clients. It gives you a bit of assurance, again, in return to yourself as well. They give guarantees on deposits and things, and it's that there's been a bit of checking gone on into you as an organisation and a company, that they're dealing with a reputable provider who isn't basically going to scam or rip them off. So you need to be a member of one of those two organisations. Fees seem to be between £300 and £600-ish, but it does vary based on the size of your company, the number of installs you're doing. I don't think there's a set price list. So it's one of those where you're going to have to apply and find out for yourselves. But before you have your MCS assessment, you need to make sure you've got that in place. I don't think you have to have actually completed your application and become a full-on member of either of both, but you need to be in the process of doing so at the point of your MCS application and assessment. But don't quote me to that. Do check it out. That's my understanding there at present. You will also need to go off and have a look at the MCS website. If I go back to the main home area here, you'll see it's actually quite a detailed website in terms of information for us as installers, but also for consumers. So it's a great place to start off any research yourselves. So if you're wanting to become certified, it actually tells you the processes you need to go through. Essentially, there's 4 commitments you have to make to quality workmanship, customer care, competency, and then your CPD. Underpinning all of that is the quality management document that they're going to want you to see. It does also list all of the certification bodies you can use, and as I said, NAPIT Certification Limited are in there. They're the ones that I'm using. If we go off and have a look at the MCS standards and tools library, this is the most useful section in terms of my initial understanding of what I needed to be doing, because it was the QMS document I was interested in. You know, we already work in areas of industry that expect quality management processes already, so we had a lot of this in place. Well, we had all of it in place, but not everybody is going to be in that position. If you're specific to the domestic industry in particular, you might not have any of this in place, and you are going to need it before you arrange that MCS assessment out on site. So they're going to expect to come and be able to see your quality management system, however you're setting it up. It doesn't have to be a big complicated thing. There's a few different ways of approaching it. One is you can use software. So there is some software out there, I think it's called Easy MCS or something along those lines, where it's basically a portal online that you can set up and register through and then manage your MCS jobs as you're going along. And it basically looks after everything you need in that one central portal. There is free licenses available for that up to certain sizes and usage, but as with all of these things, as you develop into using it in a professional capacity, there is a subscription fee that you're likely going to need to pay to unlock all of the features you're going to need. So do look into that and check it out to make sure it's suitable and applicable for you. You can also print off a lot of these files, so there's templates. If I go in and show you here on the web page itself, if we zoom down to the procedure manual, for example, for a company and download it. I'll swing it over onto the right display so you guys and girls can see this with me. Computer's on a ghost alert, but there we go. You can put your company logo in, your company details, and then you need to read through this and make sure you are actually going to work to it. It's basically your policy document of how you intend to deal with your suppliers and customers and any complaints you might get. And then you need to sign it at the end, basically. So there is a template for that if you wish to use it. Equally, if you've got contracts, for example, that you're needing to put in place, there's a template for that as well as an Excel file. And again, you can print these off and fill them in manually with pen and paper, store them in a folder, old school, or you can use these as digital copies in Excel and Word format, put them in a folder on your computer, back them up to the cloud, otherwise known as a server somewhere else, where that data is secure and inaccessible to people who shouldn't be seeing it. Let's see if this will actually open. Got to click the open button. And yeah, you can do it like that if you wish. We had software in place already that we were using. But you can see here in terms of contracts, it just details the customers essentially and the nature of the works that you're doing, when the contract was signed, etc., etc. So it is basically just a record of what you would do in the day-to-day. It seems a bit silly that these are all things that you would be doing anyway, but you do need to record the act of actually doing them in your quality management document. We pinned all of this in and around Tradify, so we're using that for our renewables offerings at the minute. All of our jobs are loaded into there. We can log our proposals to customers. We'll speak about those in a minute. Same with the DNO applications. We put all of those in there. Any complaints we might be receiving all come through there, and they can be logged into the job files and be accessible as a holistic view as well in terms of the total number of complaints and reasons for them. Any of our suppliers are in there, so all of their contact details and information, they're all stored in there. The customers' details are all in there. Certificates are all loaded into there. It's basically the central storage point of all of the documentation ends up in Tradify. We are also using some other CRM sort of diary management tools outside of Tradify that we're using to log a lot of the survey dates and things as well, and the two are tied together through that. There is options out there such as monday.com. You can use Teams. There are loads of different things you can do in terms of getting that set up, and they're not heavy on cost, but again, it depends on the value you get from that at the end of the day. We have enough people in our business to get value from it. If you're just a single person trying to get going in the solar industry and keeping your overheads as low as possible, using the Excel and Word files is an option that you can utilize, but obviously that involves a bit more manual input in my opinion, and you'd be better off utilizing some of the software options out there. I'm going to be covering Tradify in a bit more detail on my regular YouTube channel in the coming weeks and months, showing how we put those jobs in there and how we will put these documents in there and how it does all tie together so you can get a better feel of it. At the minute, I'm not doing that because we've got loads of private and personal customer information in there, and I don't want to start blanking loads of this video out. It would kind of be pointless anyway. You would see virtually nothing of the screen. Then there is the customer proposal tools. So if we go off and have a look at Easy PV, for example, you'll see here I've got a couple of jobs already loaded into the system. If I go to my projects and if I open up my own, you can see here I've built up a pretend system. It's really useful, this website, because it kind of links into Midsummer Energy wholesalers. So if I want to generate a proposal to send to a customer, I can go off to reports, customer proposal. And again, the data in this isn't accurate to a specific install. I've just made it up for the purposes of this video. But you can see it gives you your information in terms of what you're proposing to install and your anticipated generation capacities. And also, most importantly, if I can get my mouse to behave, your payback when you swing from that expenditure to supposedly generating money periods. And at the current energy prices, they are quite attractive at the moment, but obviously that is flexible and fluid based on what's going on in the wider marketplace. One of the other things you can do that is really, really useful is it links direct through to the Midsummer website in terms of generating a basket for ordering your system. So you can see here everything that was in that Phantom install I've created, populates through. It gives you anticipated delivery dates on the products. So you can see here that the solar inverter that I've specified on this particular job isn't in stock till the 5th of May, but they appear to have stock of everything else. So you can schedule your deliveries based on that. But also, very helpful, if you go through onto the actual product page, you can see you get your data sheets, the user manuals, the G98s, the G99 forms. So if we click on the G99 form, you can see it opens up a link to the approval process all of this equipment has to go through in terms of its ENA compliance and verification report. So you are going to need to check that when you're filling your G99 and G98 applications. They'll want to know the specific product number from the database that the ENA hold of approved equipment for MCS use. So particular inverters will be listed in there. If you go on the ENA website, it's all on there. You can search for the particular product you're planning on installing and make sure it is approved for MCS use. Otherwise, the DNO will going to get very upset and refuse to have the equipment connected to their network. So you need to make sure you do that. The G98s you can submit after you've installed systems. G99s need to be done before. Most systems that we're speccing seem to be going down the G99 routes as customers are wanting bigger systems, not so much in terms of exporting back to the grid, but filling the battery banks up that they're wanting installing and utilising themselves through the day. But you do need to make sure you're submitting those. And the DNOs all work in different ways. Some of them use an email system. I think some of them now have moved to electronic digital systems and ways you contact and submit that information to them. You're going to need the MPAN number. If you're familiar with the EV process in terms of applying to have EV charge points installed, it's similar but a little bit different. Because as I said, you do need to make sure the equipment links through to the database of approved equipment. And you also need to put on the generation capacities in both the battery and the inverter as well. So you need to check that out. So that was the two other bits of information to do with your proposals to customers. You will be expected to submit them at the quotation stage, a full-on proposal of what they can realistically expect in terms of generation. You can calculate all of that using the BPEC book. So it's got the sun charts in the back of here, which gives you your outputs based on your postcode area and the shading factors that you might be anticipating on your installs. So that's all in there. So I hope that has been a useful oversight of some of the documentation and processes and things you're going to need to put in place to get set up as an MCS approved solar and battery storage installer. There are a few hoops to jump through in your training, getting registered with somebody like NAPIT in terms of certification, and then also the consumer code of conduct, and then your quality management system that kind of looks after everything as a whole. And then some of the proposal software that is out there. And again, you can use Word and Excel to generate your own should you wish. That seemed like a hell of a long-winded approach to me, so we've resorted to software. EasyPV is free of charge. There is Open Solar as well that you can use. I prefer EasyPV because it links into Midsummer, so you get a good foresight of stock from them at the kind of building of the system stage rather than a bit further down the line. And also the fact that it links through to their website with all of those data sheets on there. So again, you can take those, put them into your quality management system. So in our case, load them into Tradify, and then you've got all of that in the central point ready to make sure you're doing that properly. And again, you can just print them out and put them in your quality management folder should you wish, and have it all looked after like that. For me, that's not utilising the best value from your own time. Sometimes, you get out what you put in with these software systems. If you really buy in and commit to them and start utilising them every day on all of your jobs, they more than pay for themselves very, very quickly. But when you're first trying to learn them, if you're stuck in your ways using Excel and Word and pen and paper, it can feel like a bit of a step too far. So you've really got to buy in and put the work in, do some of the training. Tradify have their own little training area where you can go off and learn about some of the features. They will also go through it over Zoom as well with their operatives, so you can get in touch with them and they'll take you through some training should you want to learn how to use that platform in more detail. If you have got any questions in and around any of this content, please do drop them in below. If you think I should have included something that I've not mentioned, again, please do drop that in below. This has been put together in the hope that it might help others who are thinking of getting involved in the solar industry. I'm going to pop another video together around some of the tools and equipment you're going to need in terms of offering your services and installers. For those of you who've seen some of the content already, you'll have seen the MC4 crimping tools as examples and some of the solar testing equipment and such, even the bandsaws to cut your rails. There are some tools that you may not already have in your kit that you're going to need to be able to tick off the boxes in terms of MCS registration and delivering safe and compliant systems, which is what it's all about. Thank you for watching. I hope it's not been too long and boring, and I will see you on the next one.